The wreckage of the Odyssey's end hung in the silent dark like a dead whale among stars. Its hull was split open in 3 places, scorched black by plasma fire, and frozen oxygen crystals glittered in the vacuum like ghostly snow. No rescue signal pulsed from its broken comms. No life signs blinked on any scanner. To the rest of the galaxy, it was just another tomb drifting near the red dust of Mars. But someone was still alive inside. Mia crouched behind a twisted bulkhead in what used to be the crew mess. Her breath fogged inside her cracked helmet, and her fingers trembled not from cold but from the last of her oxygen running thin. She pressed a hand to her ribs, bruised, maybe cracked, and winced. The ambush had come without warning. One minute she was hauling scrap from the old Sol Belt. The next, alien fighters tore through her escort like paper. She'd barely made it aboard the Odyssey's end before it blew apart. Now she was alone. Again. She checked her wrist display. 23 minutes of air left. Not enough to wait for help. Earth Command hadn't answered her distress call. Probably never would. Fringe pilots like her were cheap, replaceable. She'd known that when she signed up. Still, it stung. Outside the shattered viewport, something moved. Not debris. Not a drifting tool. Something sleek and silent, shaped like a blade wrapped in shadow. It hovered just beyond the wreck, scanning with pale blue beams that cut through the dark like searchlights. Mia ducked lower, heart hammering. Those weren't human ships. Too smooth, too quiet. She'd seen hollows of them before, Elthari hunters. Elves of the stars, the old spacers called them. Tall, silver-eyed, cold as vacuum. And they never came this deep into human space unless they wanted something. Or someone. She held her breath as the beams swept closer. One passed right over her hiding spot. For a second, she thought she was safe. Then the beam paused. Flickered. Returned. They'd found her. Panic clawed up her throat, but she forced it down. Panic got you killed faster than bad oxygen. She crawled backward through the ruined corridor, boots scraping on frozen metal. Her only weapon was a plasma torch with half a charge, useless against a warship. But maybe, just maybe, she could reach the emergency pod tucked behind engineering, if it still worked. Meanwhile, high above the wreckage, Lyra Valen watched from the cockpit of her cloaked skiff. The ship wasn't metal. It was grown, not built. Its hull made of hardened fungal resin and woven starwood, camouflaged to look like cosmic dust. Her long silver hair was tied back, her pointed ears twitching at every whisper of data from the sensors. Her eyes, the color of moonlit ice, narrowed as the hunter drones locked onto a heat signature inside the freighter. They found her, she murmured. In the cargo hold behind her, a low rumble shook the floor. Kale uncoiled from his nest of thermal blankets, his massive wings folding tight against his obsidian scales. His eyes glowed amber in the dim light, slitted like a cat's. Though he had no mouth to speak with, his voice echoed in Lyra's mind, deep and rough as grinding stone. Of course they found her. She's human. Loud, messy, impossible to ignore. Lyra didn't smile, but something warm flickered in her chest. That's why they want her. Kale patted forward on clawed feet, his tail curling around a support beam. Zainara's daughters need a true human for their awakening ritual. Not a clone, not a recording. A real one, breathing, feeling, screaming, probably. They won't get her, Lyra said, fingers dancing over the controls. The skiff hummed to life, engines flaring with silent energy. Not while I'm here. You're risking exile all over again, Kyle warned. If the Synod finds out you're interfering, let them, she said softly. I stopped believing in their logic when they called compassion a flaw. Below, Mia reached engineering. The pod was there, dented but intact. She scrambled inside, fingers fumbling with the hatch seals. Just as she slammed the release, a drone burst through the wall like a ghost made of glass and light. It hovered inches from her face, its single red eye pulsing. Identify species, it chimed in perfect, emotionless English. Maya stared at it, then did the only thing she could think of. She spat on its lens. The drone recoiled as if burned. Contamination detected. Initiating capture protocol. Alarms blared. Magnetic clamps shot from the drone's sides, reaching for her arms. She kicked, twisted, but it was no use. She was trapped. Then the lights went out, not just in the pod, in the whole wreck. The drone's glow dimmed. The hum of its engines died. Silence fell like a blanket. Maya blinked. A shadow filled the doorway. Tall, slender, wrapped in a cloak that shimmered like starlight on water. Silver hair. Eyes that saw too much. An Elthari. But not like the hunters. This one moved like wind through trees. Quiet, ancient, alive. Come with me, the elf woman said, voice low and calm. Or die here. Mia didn't hesitate. I'm coming. The elf nodded, then raised a hand. A pulse of blue energy shot from her palm, shattering the drone into glittering dust. She grabbed Mia's arm and pulled her into the dark corridor. Who are you? Mia gasped as they ran. Lyra Valen, she said. And you're Mia Reyes, salvage pilot, serial rule breaker, and currently the most wanted human in 3 sectors. Mia stumbled. How do you know my name? Zinara broadcast it, Lyra said grimly. She told every hunter in the Dominion, bring me a human for my daughters. You're the last one left. They reached a maintenance shaft. Lyra tapped a panel and a hidden door slid open. Beyond it, a small skiff waited, its interior glowing with soft green light. Inside, something huge shifted. That's a dragon? Mia whispered. Kale! The voice rumbled in her head. And yes, I'm real. Get in before they send more drones. Mia climbed aboard, still dazed. The hatch sealed behind her. The skiff lifted off, weaving through the debris with impossible grace. Outside, more hunter ships appeared, their blades gleaming. They're surrounding us, Mia said. Let them try, Lyra replied, hands steady on the controls. Kale stretched his wings, filling the cabin with warmth. Hold on, human. It's about to get interesting. The skiff shot forward, vanishing into the storm of red dust kicked up from Mars. The hunters fired, but their beams passed through empty space. Lyra had activated the cloaking field, a trick learned from old Earth myths and forbidden Althari tech. As they disappeared into the planet's shadow, Mia finally let out the breath she'd been holding. She looked at Lyra, then at Kale, whose amber eyes watched her with something like curiosity. Why save me? She asked. Lyra met her gaze. Because they think humans are animals to be used. I think you're something more. Kale snorted, smoke curling from his nostrils. And because you spat on their drone. That was impressive. Mia managed a tired grin. Well, if I'm gonna die, I might as well be rude on the way out. Lyra almost smiled. Almost. Far behind them, the hunter ships circled the wreck like vultures. But their prize was gone. Taken by an exile, a dragon, and a human who refused to be a trophy. And somewhere in the heart of the Althari Dominion, Princess Zainara stared at her empty throne room and whispered, Find her. Bring her to me. I don't care what it costs. But costs, as Mia would soon learn, were not always measured in credits or blood. Sometimes they were paid in hope, in trust, in the quiet courage of a girl who spat at death and lived to tell the tale. The skiff shuddered as it dropped out of warp near a dead moon orbiting Jupiter. Outside, storms of hydrogen and ammonia swirled in slow motion, painting the void in shades of rust and gold. Inside, Mia sat on a woven mat, wrapped in a blanket that hummed with warmth. Her oxygen levels were stable now, thanks to the ship's strange air system that smelled faintly of pine and rain. Lyra stood at the control panel, her back straight, fingers tracing glowing symbols that floated in the air like fireflies. Kale lay coiled near the rear, one massive eye open, watching Mia with quiet interest. You're not going to sell me, are you? Mia asked, voice rough from disuse. Lyra turned. No. Then why did you save me? Because Princess Zinara wants you for a ritual. She believes human emotion can awaken psychic power in her daughters. She thinks you're a tool. I think you're a person, Mia snorted. Well, I'm flattered. But what do you get out of this? Lyra hesitated. Then she walked over and sat across from Mia. I was once part of the Althari court. I served the royal house, but I refused to accept their belief that feeling is weakness. They called me broken, exiled me. Kale chose to leave with me. Kale rumbled softly. Someone had to keep her from talking to trees all day. Mia looked between them. So you're rebels. We're survivors, Lyra corrected. And right now you are too. But Zainara won't stop. She has hunters in every sector. If we stay in open space, they'll find us, so what's the plan? Maya asked. Lyra's eyes gleamed. We go to her, Mia blinked. You want to walk into the lion's den? The only way to end this is to face her. And you're the key. Me, Mia laughed. I'm just a pilot who fixes old ships and drinks bad coffee. You're more than that, Kale said in her mind. You spat on their drone. You didn't beg. You didn't break. That's rare, even among my kind. Mia fell silent. She'd never thought of herself as special, just stubborn, maybe a little reckless. But if this was her only chance to live, she'd take it. Fine, she said. But I'm not wearing a dress. Lyra almost smiled. No dress. Just your word that you'll follow my lead. Deal. Over the next few days, Lyra taught Mia the basics of Elthari customs. No direct eye contact with nobles. Never speak unless spoken to. Bow with the left hand over the heart. Mia practiced in front of a reflective panel, muttering under her breath. This feels like a bad school play, she grumbled. It's survival, Lyra said. One wrong move and they'll drain your mind dry for the ritual, Kyle snorted. Or turn you into a garden statue. They like doing that to traitors. Comforting, Mia deadpanned. The skiff itself was unlike any human ship. It grew food from wall panels, berries, mushrooms, even steaming broth that appeared in ceramic bowls. The floor adjusted to your steps. Soft when you were tired, firm when you needed to move fast. Mia kept touching the walls, amazed they felt alive. It's part of me, Lyra explained. My blood, my thoughts, my memories are woven into its core. That's how we stay hidden. So if you die, Mia started. The ship dies too, Lyra finished. Which is why we can't fail. As they neared the outer rim of Elthari space, Lyra activated a disguise protocol. The skiff's shape shifted, its organic curves hardening into sharp angles. Its color changed from green gold to cold silver. By the time they reached the border checkpoint, it looked like a standard noble courier vessel. Maya wore a simple gray tunic and trousers, her hair tied back. Lyra had given her a thin circlet that masked her human biosignature. Don't touch it, she warned. If it slips, the scanners will know. They passed through the gate without incident. The Elthari guards barely glanced at them. To them, Lyra was just another minor noble returning home. But Mia's heart pounded the whole time. She'd never been this deep in alien territory. Everything felt wrong. The air too clean, the silence too heavy. The way everyone moved like they were underwater. Finally, they docked at a station shaped like a blooming flower. Petals of crystal and steel opened to receive them. Beyond it hung the true marvel, the Elthari capital. It wasn't a planet. It was a city built inside a hollowed-out comet, wrapped in rings of living light, vines of pure energy twisted through the void, connecting towers that floated without support. At its heart pulsed a dying star cradled in a cage of ancient magic. Home, Kyle said, though his voice held no warmth. You lived there? Mia asked. Once, Lyra said, before they cast me out. They took a transport pod down to the lower levels where lesser nobles and servants stayed. Lyra had arranged for false identities. She was Lyra of the Seventh Vine, a distant cousin with no political power. Mia was her silent attendant, a role usually filled by mute servants or prisoners. As they walked through the halls, Mia kept her head down. The Elthari were tall, pale with eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. They moved without sound, spoke without raising their voices. It was eerie, beautiful but cold. Then she saw them. Two young Elthari girls no older than 10 standing by a fountain of liquid starlight. They wore matching silver robes, their hair braided with tiny crystals. They stared at Mia with wide, curious eyes. One of them stepped forward. You're human, she whispered. Mia froze. Lyra tensed beside her. Before anyone could react, the other girl giggled. You smell like metal and smoke. The first one nodded. Mother said humans are wild, that they feel too much. Mia didn't know what to say, so she did what felt natural. She knelt, meeting their eyes without fear. And what do you feel? The girls looked at each other, confused. We don't know, the first admitted. Mother says strong feelings are dangerous. Dangerous or powerful? Mia asked gently. They had no answer. Just then a sharp voice cut through the air. Seraph, Lyra, step away from the attendant. A tall Elthari woman approached, her robes edged in black. Her eyes locked onto Mia with cold fury. It was Princess Zainara. Lyra bowed deeply. Your Highness. Zainara ignored her. She stared at Mia like she was examining a rare insect. So this is the last human. Mia stood slowly. Last I checked, yeah. Zainara's lips thinned. You will address me as Princess, and you'll stop hunting my people like animals, Mia shot back. Silence fell. Even the fountain seemed to stop flowing. Lyra stepped forward. Princess, she means no disrespect. She is untrained. I know what she is, Zainara interrupted, and she will serve her purpose. She turned to the girls. Come, daughters. Your lesson begins tomorrow. As they walked away, Seraph looked back at Mia, her eyes full of something like hope. Once they were alone, Lyra grabbed Mia's arm. You can't talk to her like that. Why not, Mia said. She's the one treating humans like batteries. Because she can have you executed with a word, then let her try, Mia said, jaw set. I'd rather die standing than live on my knees. Kale, who had been watching from a shadowed archway, let out a low growl of approval. Lyra studied Mia for a long moment. Then she sighed. You're either very brave or very stupid. Maybe both, Mia said with a tired smile. That night in their small chamber, Mia couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, watching the dying star pulse like a slow heartbeat. Kyle lay nearby, his scales catching the light. Why do they want me so bad, she asked softly. Because they've forgotten how to feel. Kyle replied in her mind. They think emotion is chaos, but you carry it like a flame. Not wild, not broken, just alive. Mia looked down at her hands, calloused, scarred, human. I don't feel special. You don't have to be special to matter, Kale said. You just have to be real. Outside, the city glowed in perfect silence. No laughter, no arguments, no music, just order. Cold, clean, empty. Mia made a decision she wouldn't hide. She wouldn't play the quiet servant. If Zenara wanted a human, she'd get one. With all the messy, loud, stubborn truth that came with it. And maybe, just maybe, she could show those girls that feeling wasn't weakness. It was strength. Lyra entered the room holding 2 cups of steaming broth. She handed one to Mia. You're planning something. Maybe, Mia said, sipping the warm liquid. Got any ideas? Lyra sat beside her, eyes on the star. Tomorrow Zenara will bring her daughters to the ritual chamber. That's when she'll try to use you. So we stop her there or we change the game, Lyra said. You showed her daughter something today. Curiosity. That's dangerous to Zenara. Use it, Mia nodded. I can do that. Kyle stretched, his wings brushing the ceiling. Just remember, when it all goes wrong, I'll be there to burn the place down. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Lyra said. But they all knew it might, because in a world that feared feeling, a single human laugh could start a revolution. The Elthari capital hummed with quiet energy as dawn broke over the floating towers. Not real dawn. There was no sun here, but a soft pulse of light that spread through the city like breath. Mia stood in the center of a grand hall made of polished crystal and living wood. Her gray tunic had been replaced with a simple white robe, its edges stitched with silver thread. Lyra had warned her this was the day, the ritual day. Princess Zenara sat on a high throne carved from black stone veined with starlight. Her twin daughters, Seraph and Lyra, stood on either side of her, dressed in matching gowns that shimmered like ice. Their eyes were wide, nervous. They kept glancing at Maya. Courtiers lined the walls, silent and still as statues. Not one whispered. Not one moved out of place. The air smelled of ozone and old incense. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. Lyra stood near the back, her face calm but her fingers clenched tight behind her back. Kale was hidden in the lower vaults beneath the hall, waiting. Mia could feel his presence in the back of her mind, a steady warmth like a campfire in the dark. Zenara raised a hand. The hall fell even quieter, if that was possible. Today, she said, her voice smooth as glass, my daughters reached the age of awakening. For generations, our bloodline has drawn power from the raw emotion of lesser beings. It sharpens the mind, opens the soul. And for this ritual, we require a true human, one untouched by cloning, by memory wipes, by fear. Her eyes locked onto Mia. You will serve. Mia didn't bow. She didn't look away. I'm not here to serve, she said clearly. I'm here to talk. A ripple went through the court. Someone gasped. Another took a step back. Zenara's expression didn't change, but her eyes narrowed. You misunderstand your place, she said coldly. No, Mia said. You misunderstand humans, she turned to the twins. Seraph, Lyra. Your mother says you need my feelings to become strong. But what if you already are strong? What if you don't need to steal someone else's heart to find your own? Seraph bit her lip. Lyra looked down at her hands. Zenara rose from her throne. Silence her. 2 guards stepped forward, their armor made of woven light. But before they could reach Maya, she did something no one expected. She laughed. Not a nervous giggle. Not a mocking sneer. A real, full laugh. Warm, bright, and utterly out of place in this frozen court. It echoed off the crystal walls like a crack in ice. The courtiers flinched. Some covered their ears. Others stared in horror. Laughter was chaos. Chaos was forbidden. But Seraph and Lyra didn't look afraid. They looked curious. Why are you laughing? Lyra asked softly. Because it's funny. Mia said, still smiling. You think you need me to feel something real? I bet you've felt plenty. You're just not allowed to say it. Sinara's voice cut in, sharp as a blade. You mock our ways. No, Mia said, turning to her. I'm just wondering if your daughters really need me, or if you're scared they'll outshine you without a crutch. The words hung in the air like smoke. Sinara went very still. The court held its breath. Even the light in the hall seemed to dim. Then from the back a voice spoke. She speaks truth. Everyone turned. It was Elder Voss, one of the oldest members of the synod, his face lined with centuries. He stepped forward, leaning on a staff of twisted root. We have forgotten, he said, his voice trembling. We call emotion weakness, but it is the root of courage, of art, of love. Without it, we are just machines with pretty faces. Zinara whirled on him. You dare, I dare, he interrupted. Because I remember what we were before the Great Silence, before we cut out our hearts to become perfect. Murmurs spread through the crowd, not loud but growing, like water finding cracks in stone. Sinara's control was slipping. Mia saw it in the tightness of her jaw, the flicker in her eyes. She had built her power on order, on fear, on the idea that feeling was dangerous. But now, in front of her own court, a human, a single stubborn human, had made her daughters smile, had made an elder speak, had made the silence break, and it terrified her. Take her away, Zinara ordered, pointing at Mia. Prepare the neural weave. We will drain her memories by force. The guards moved again. This time Mia didn't resist. She let them grab her arms. But as they led her away, she looked back at Seraph and Lyra. Remember this, she said. You don't need me to be powerful. You just need to let yourself feel. Seraph nodded just once. Lyra wiped a tear from her eye, a tear that glowed faintly blue like starlight. In the lower vaults, Kale felt the shift in the air. He pressed his massive head against the stone wall, listening. Lyra's voice came through their bond, tight with worry. They're taking her to the chamber. Then it's time, Kale replied. Above, Mia was brought to a circular room with no doors. The walls were lined with glowing filaments that pulsed like veins. In the center stood a chair made of crystal, wired with thin threads of light. This was where they would plug her in, where they would siphon her memories, her pain, her joy, and feed it to the twins like medicine. The guards forced her into the chair. Cold metal pressed against her skin. One of them reached for a helmet lined with needles, but before he could place it on her head, the lights flickered, then went out. Emergency beams snapped on, red and harsh. Alarms blared, not loud but urgent, like a whisper turned to scream. Intruder in the lower vaults, a voice announced over the comms. Sinara's voice crackled through. Seal the chamber. Proceed with the ritual. The guard hurried to lock the helmet in place. Mia closed her eyes. She thought of Earth, of rainy streets and burnt coffee and the sound of her little sister's laugh. She wouldn't let them take that, not without a fight. Then the wall exploded, not with fire but with roots. Thick, thorny vines burst through the crystal, tearing the room apart. From the smoke and dust, Kale emerged, his scales black as night, his eyes burning gold. He roared, a sound that shook the very stars, and the guards dropped their weapons, stumbling back in terror. Get her out! Lyra's voice came from behind him. Lyra stood in the wreckage, her hands raised, her silver hair glowing with energy. She had used the ship's life force, channeled it through her own blood to break the vault open. It was forbidden magic, deadly, but she didn't care. Kyle scooped Mia up in one massive claw, careful not to hurt her. Hold on, he growled in her mind. They burst out of the chamber just as more guards arrived. Lyra ran beside them, weaving barriers of light to block the shots. They raced through the halls, the city in chaos behind them. But they didn't head for the docks. They headed for the throne room. Why are we going back? Maya asked, clinging to Kale's claw. Because it's not over, Lyra said. Zinara has to see what she's done. They crashed through the doors of the grand hall. The court was still there, stunned, confused. Zinara stood alone on the dais, her face pale with rage. You think you've won, she hissed. No, Mia said, stepping forward. But your daughters have. She pointed to Seraph and Lyra, who stood near the fountain holding hands. Their eyes were bright, not with fear, but with something new, wonder, anger, hope. They don't need me, Mia said. They never did. They just needed you to stop being afraid of them. Zinara looked at her daughters, really looked, and for the first time Mia saw doubt in her eyes. The elder Voss stepped forward again. The ritual is void. The human has spoken, and the law says, If the offering speaks truth, the ritual ends. Zinara opened her mouth to argue, but no words came. The court was watching her, waiting, even her own daughters. She had lost, not to weapons, not to war, but to a laugh, to a tear, to the simple, messy truth of being human. Lyra walked to Mia's side. Kale stood behind them, a silent wall of scales and fire. The hall was quiet again, but this time, the silence felt different. Lighter, like the air after a storm. And somewhere in that silence, a new beginning stirred. The silence in the throne room stretched like thin ice over deep water. No one moved. No one spoke. Even the glowing vines along the walls seemed to hold their breath. Zinara stood frozen on her dais. Her hands clenched so tight her knuckles turned white. Her eyes darted between Mia, her daughters, and the elder Voss. The court watched her, waiting to see if she would break or bend. Mia stood tall, her heart pounding but her voice steady. She had said what needed to be said. Now it was up to them. Then Seraph stepped forward. "Mother," she said, her voice small but clear. "I don't want her memories. I want my own." Lyra joined her, gripping her sister's hand. We felt something when she laughed. It wasn't scary, it was warm. Zinara's face twisted, not with anger this time, but with something deeper. Pain, fear, maybe even shame. She had spent her whole life believing that control was strength, that emotion was a flaw to be cut away. But here were her daughters, her perfect heirs, asking for the very thing she had taught them to fear. Before she could answer, a sharp voice cut through the hall. "Traitor." Everyone turned. Standing in the arched doorway was Lord Kalen, Zainara's cousin and head of the royal guard. His silver robes were edged in black, and his eyes burned with cold fury. He pointed at Lyra. She broke the vault. She used forbidden life magic. She brought a human into the heart of our capital. She must be judged, the court murmured. Some nodded. Others looked uneasy. Lyra didn't flinch. "I broke nothing that wasn't already broken." "You defied the synod," Kalen snapped. "You sheltered an outsider. You corrupted the ritual. The law is clear, exile is too kind. You deserve the silence, the silence." Mia had heard whispers of it. It wasn't death. It was worse. They would sever your bond with the living ship, cut your mind from the neural weave and leave you in a hollow chamber where no sound, no light, no thought could reach you. A living grave. Kale growled low in his throat, smoke curling from his nostrils. "Touch her and I'll melt your bones to glass." "Dragon," Kalen sneered. "You were cast out with her. You have no voice here." "Maybe not," Mia said, stepping between them. "But I do." All eyes turned to her again. "You keep talking about law," she said to Kalen. "But your law says if the offering speaks truth, the ritual ends." Elder Voss confirmed it. "So why are you still trying to punish people for doing the right thing?" Kalen's lips thinned. "The human has no standing in our courts." "Then give her standing," Elder Voss said firmly. "Ancient law allows any being who speaks truth before the synod to request a trial by empathy. Let her offer her memories to all of us. Let us see what humanity truly is." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Trial by empathy hadn't been used in 500 years. It was considered too dangerous, too raw. It required the entire court to link minds and share the offering's life, pain, joy, and fear as if it were their own. Zinara finally spoke, her voice quiet. "You would risk that, yes," Voss said. "Because we have forgotten what it means to be alive." Kalen scoffed. "She will flood us with chaos, with noise, with weakness. Or," Mia said, "you'll finally understand why we fight, why we laugh, why we love even when it hurts." Zinara looked at her daughters. Seraph and Lyra were watching Mia with wide, hopeful eyes. They didn't look afraid. They looked ready. After a long moment, Zinara nodded. "Very well. The trial will proceed." Guards led Mia to the center of the hall. The floor opened beneath her feet, revealing a circular platform lined with glowing filaments. She stepped onto it barefoot. The surface was warm like sunlit stone. Lyra tried to follow, but 2 guards blocked her path. "Only the offering may enter," one said. Kale tensed, but Lyra placed a hand on his scaled shoulder. "Trust her," she whispered. Mia stood alone in the center. The filaments rose around her, forming a dome of light. Elder Voss approached, holding a crystal orb. "Place your hands on it," he said. "Open your mind. Do not hide anything." Mia took a deep breath. Then she did as he asked. Instantly, the hall changed. Light filled the air. not from above but from within. Images swirled like smoke. Earth cities under rain, starships burning in the void. A little girl crying over a broken toy, a pilot singing off-key in a cockpit, hands shaking after a near miss, laughter shared over bad coffee, grief for lost friends, stubborn hope in the dark. The Elthari gasped as the memories poured into them. They felt Mia's fear when the hunters attacked. They felt her loneliness drifting near Mars. They felt her anger at being treated like an object. But they also felt her joy, small, bright moments that humans clung to like lifelines. They saw her mother's hands braiding her hair. They heard her father's voice telling stories before bed. They felt the weight of her sister's last hug before she left for the fringe. And then they felt something else. Courage. Not the kind that roars. The kind that whispers keep going when everything says to stop. The kind that spits on a drone just because it's there. The kind that laughs in a silent court just to remind everyone that joy still exists. Tears streamed down the faces of the Elthari. Not just the young ones. Even the elders wept. Their perfect composure shattered like glass, because for the first time in centuries they felt something real. Zanara fell to her knees. She saw herself through Mia's eyes, not as a powerful princess but as a woman terrified of losing control. Terrified of her own daughters becoming more than she allowed them to be. Kalen staggered back, his face pale. This is madness, he whispered, but even he couldn't deny the warmth spreading through his chest. The ache of something long buried. Only Lyra and Kale remained dry-eyed. They had already seen it. They had already believed. When the light faded, Mia stood alone again, trembling but unbroken. The court was silent, but this time it was the silence of awe, not fear. Elder Voss bowed deeply. The truth has been shown. The trial is complete. Zanara rose slowly. She walked to Mia, her steps unsteady. She stopped just before her, then did something no Elthari royal had done in memory. She bowed. You were right, she said, her voice thick. We did not need your memories. We needed your heart. Then she turned to Lyra. You are no longer exiled. Your bond with the ship is restored. Your place in the court is yours again. Lyra nodded, but her eyes stayed on Mia. Zanara faced the court. The ritual is ended. Forever. From this day, emotion is not weakness. It is our strength. A cheer rose, not loud but clear, like wind through leaves. The first true sound of joy the capital had heard in generations. Kale padded forward and gently nudged Mia with his snout. You did it, human. Mia leaned against him, exhausted but smiling. We did it. And in that moment, the walls between species didn't just crack. They began to bloom. Quinn 3 Max 11:06. PM weeks passed in the Elthari capital like petals unfolding in slow sunlight. The city, once rigid and silent, now hummed with a new kind of energy. Music drifted from open windows, soft flutes, gentle chimes, even the sound of laughter echoing through crystal halls. The vines that lined the towers bloomed with tiny silver flowers, something the elders said hadn't happened in over 300 years. Maya stayed in the palace, not as a prisoner or a servant, but as a guest. Her room overlooked the inner garden where the dying star's light filtered through living canopies. It had a real bed, a desk made of polished rootwood, and a small balcony where Kale often curled up to sunbathe. He claimed the star's warmth helped his scales regenerate. Mia suspected he just liked showing off. Lyra walked the halls freely again. Her exile lifted. She wore no crown, held no title, but everyone treated her with quiet respect. She spent her days teaching the younger Elthari about Earth, its oceans, its storms, its stubborn people who built cities from rubble and songs from sorrow. The twins, Seraph and Lyra, followed her everywhere, asking endless questions. Do humans really eat with their hands? Lyra asked one morning, wide-eyed. Sometimes, Lyra said, smiling. And they spill soup on their clothes, Seraph giggled. That sounds messy. It is, Lyra said, and beautiful. Mia watched them from the garden below, sipping coffee from a ceramic mug that refilled itself every time it emptied. She still couldn't get over that. Zanara had changed too. She no longer wore black-edged robes. Her hair was looser, her steps lighter. She visited Mia often. Not as a princess, but as a mother trying to understand. I thought I was protecting them, Zanara admitted one evening, sitting beside Mia on the balcony, by shielding them from pain, from chaos. But I was just locking them in a cage of my own fear. We all do that sometimes, Mia said. Even humans. We think love means control, but it doesn't. It means trust. Zinara looked at her daughters playing with Kyle in the courtyard below. The dragon was pretending to be a mountain while they climbed his tail. He let out a rumbling purr that shook the ground. "Will you stay?" Zinara asked quietly. Mia didn't answer right away. She thought of Earth. The smog-choked cities, the broken colonies, the endless grind of survival. But she also thought of the people who shared their last meal, who sang in the dark, who never stopped hoping. "I can't stay forever," she said. "Earth needs pilots like me, but I can stay for a while." Zinara nodded. "Long enough to teach them. Long enough to learn from them too," Mia added. The next day, Zinara called a gathering in the Grand Hall. Not a trial, not a ritual. A celebration. Courtiers arrived in robes of soft blues and greens, colors once forbidden as too emotional. Musicians played instruments carved from moonwood. Tables held dishes that steamed with unfamiliar spices and, to Mia's delight, something that tasted almost like chocolate. In the center of the hall, Zinara stood with her daughters. She raised her hands for silence. "Today," she announced, "we begin anew. No more rituals. No more fear. From this moment, the Althari will learn not just to feel, but to listen." She turned to Mia. "You came here as a prize. You leave as a teacher. If you choose to go." Murmurs of surprise rose. Even Lyra looked up from her seat near the front. Maya stepped forward. "I'm not leaving yet," she said. "But I have a condition." Zinara raised an eyebrow. "Name it." "Kyle gets a sunbathing balcony with a view of the star." The court laughed, a real, warm laugh that filled the hall like music. "And," Mia added, grinning, "I get unlimited coffee." Zinara smiled. "Granted." Seraph and Lyra ran to Mia and hugged her legs. "You'll teach us to laugh more, right?" Seraph asked. "And to be brave," Lyra added. "And to fix broken ships," Mia said. "Because someday you might want to see Earth for yourselves." The twins' eyes lit up. "Really, really?" Lyra approached, her expression calm but her eyes bright. "You've changed everything," she said softly. "No," Mia replied. "It gave me the chance. Kale gave me courage. They just needed someone to show them it was okay to feel." Kale patted over, his massive head dipping low. "You're not just a pilot, Mia Reyes," he rumbled in her mind. "You're a bridge." That night, as the star pulsed gently above, Mia stood on her balcony with Lyra and Kale. The city below glowed with soft light, alive in a way it hadn't been for centuries. "Do you ever miss it?" Lyra asked. "Earth every day," Mia said. "But home isn't just a place. It's the people who make you feel seen." She looked at Lyra, at Kale, at the twins waving from a distant tower. "I think I found a piece of home here too." Far away on the edge of human space, a salvage ship drifted near a broken satellite. Its pilot, a young woman named June, tapped her comms in frustration. "Anyone out there, this is Freighter 7. "I could use a hand," Static answered. But if she'd known what was happening in the heart of the Aelthari Dominion, if she'd known that a human laugh had cracked open an empire of ice, she might have smiled, because hope once lit spreads faster than any signal. And somewhere between the stars, a dragon curled around a balcony. A silver-haired elf watched the sky, and a human woman sipped coffee, knowing that sometimes the smallest act of courage can change everything. The end.